Is it possible to steal a piece of jewelry weighing almost 3,000 carats in such a way that the owners themselves hand over this enormous treasure to the thief without even mentioning money? To pull off this feat with dizzying virtuosity, cunning, and ingenuity. To frame others, take revenge, and gain popularity. The 18th century. Versailles, Ascension Day. Courtiers in ceremonial dress gathered for a solemn mass. Cardinal de Rohan, dressed in full regalia, was on his way to officiate the service, and right here, in the gallery, in front of everyone, he was arrested by royal order. Versailles gasped. This had never happened before. How did a servant of God become involved in a grand fraud, and without even knowing about it, until he was charged? It all started with a necklace. Imagine a piece of jewelry that takes your breath away. 647 diamonds. 3 rows of stones hanging in garlands like a frozen waterfall of light. Court jewelers Boehmer and Bassenge spent several years creating it, especially for Louis XV's favorite, Madame du Barry. But she died before she had a chance to try it on. The jewelers were left with a debt of 1.5 million livres and a piece of jewelry that no one could afford. No one except the Queen. They offered it to Marie Antoinette. Once, twice, 3 times. The Queen refused. Then the cardinal appears with a letter of guarantee signed by the Queen, and he receives the necklace from the jewelers. When the jewelers turned to the Queen for the first installment payment, she was horrified. She had no idea about any necklace. The cardinal was arrested. Louis XVI personally questioned the cardinal. De Rohan gave a detailed explanation. Everything came to light. How was this possible? Somewhere in Paris lives a man who knows the answer. A resourceful man, patient, able to read people like an experienced card sharp reads cards, unerringly, with cold calculation. First, he had to find a weakness. Cardinal de Rohan, one of the richest men in France, dressed in cardinal's purple with a famous surname, had one unhealed wound. The Queen despised him, openly, demonstratively. And this drove him mad. Without Marie Antoinette's favor, there was no real power, and power was like air to him. Our man noticed this. A mediator appeared, someone who had access to both the cardinal and, allegedly, the Queen. Someone who whispered to de Rohan that everything was not as it seemed, that the Queen was not so cold toward him after all, that it was simply circumstances, the court, politics. That help was possible. De Rohan wanted to believe, and when a man wants to believe, he believes. Then letters from the Queen began to be delivered to the cardinal. At first they were reserved, then increasingly confidential, almost tender. De Rohan reread them over and over again. He didn't notice anything strange. He didn't want to notice anything. Then there was a night in the gardens of Versailles, the Grove of Venus. The cardinal waited in the darkness. He had been told that the Queen wanted to meet him personally, in secret, that she was ready to forgive the past. She appeared, a white dress, a veil. With regal poise, she held out the rose and said softly, "You can hope that the past is forgotten." De Rohan kissed her hand. He was overwhelmed with happiness. The meeting lasted less than a minute. After that night, the cardinal could be asked for anything. They explained to him that the Queen secretly desired the necklace. However, she could not purchase it openly, as there would be too much talk about extravagance. She requested that the cardinal act as an intermediary, to purchase the necklace from the jewelers on behalf of the crown and give it to her secretly. The money would be returned later. As proof, they presented a letter signed Marie Antoinette de France. French monarchs never signed their names with the country, only their first name. It was a gross mistake. De Rohan did not notice it. He gave the jewelers a letter of guarantee and took the necklace. That same night, the jewelry was dismantled. The stones were scattered across Europe. 5.5 million livres vanished into thin air. When everything came to light and Versailles was buzzing with scandal, the investigators had one question: who was behind it all? The cardinal? He was a pawn, blinded by vanity, gullible, pathetic in his belief that the queen loved him. The young woman in white who was seen in the gardens. They found her quickly, a courtesan named Nicole d'Oliva, whom someone had hired for her resemblance to Marie Antoinette and taught a short scene. They rehearsed, literally like actors. She played her part and knew almost nothing. The man who sold stones in London, the executor, the husband, whose hands, but not whose head. The head turned out to be a woman's. Her name was Jean. She was born into the family of an impoverished nobleman who swore that he was descended from Henry II himself through the illegitimate Valois line. Her father drank. Her mother ran away. Little Jean begged for alms on the roads of Champagne, a noblewoman with royal blood in her veins and an empty stomach. That's what injustice does to a person. It doesn't break them, it sharpens them. Jean learned to read. She learned to speak like they do in salons. She learned to smile in such a way that men forgot to ask questions. She married Officer de Lamotte, an adventurer like herself. And she began her assault on Versailles, not with weapons, but with the name Valois, which she pronounced with such pride and such pain that they believed her. Step by step, she infiltrated circles where she should never have been allowed. It was there that she spotted the cardinal. She saw his wound, and she realized she had found everything she needed. At the trial, Jean behaved defiantly, madly defiantly. She didn't just deny it. She hinted, what if the queen herself wanted the necklace? What if the whole story was a plot by the crown itself? She didn't say it directly. She only hinted at it. It was a lie. But Paris believed readily. Because Marie Antoinette had long been hated Madame Deficit, an Austrian, a spendthrift. When Jean hinted at her involvement, people nodded. It was just like her. The court handed down its verdict. Jean was guilty. She was publicly flogged and branded. The letter V for thief was burned onto her shoulder. Sentenced to life imprisonment. De Rohan was acquitted, much to the Queen's fury. But Jean de Lamotte's story did not end in a prison cell. A year later, she escaped. Jean ended up in London, where she was reunited with her husband and the diamonds that had not yet been sold. And she continued to be defiant in her own way. She wrote her memoirs. Jean de Lamotte's memoirs became a bestseller. Scandalous, dirty, magnificent in its audacity. She described her relationship with the Queen with such intimate authenticity that readers were delighted, and Marie Antoinette, they say, wept with rage and humiliation. 647 diamonds. Not a single one was found. They scattered across Europe, stone by stone, just like the reputation of the Queen who never wore them. Was it greed? Or revenge by a once hungry girl with the proud name of Valois?